Alright, so hello everyone. I am going to be making a very short tutorial here. And actually it's not really a tutorial, it's just a couple of hints and tips when it comes to um, the baby avatars and a weight painting tip. So the first thing is somebody asked me if Bento Buddy works with the baby avatars, and it does. This is the BB body, B-E-B-E body, and I am going to go ahead and choose the parts of the mesh that I want to export for Marvelous Designer. When you do this, make sure you select them, because when we go to File and Export the OBJ, we want to make sure that over here we choose Selection Only. The reason this is important is because often in a file, there are pieces of mesh that you cannot see. So for instance, the baby's head on this one is hidden right now. And even if you chose just the body and the feet but did not choose selection only, that head would go with the mesh. It would be exported as well. Sometimes when you're doing a dev kit, it may have 3 female bodies in there, and you don't really know that it's 3 at first, kind of like the Maitreya kit that I showed you. Well, if you don't choose selection only, then all of them get exported at the same time. And that's definitely not something that we want. So I went ahead and I've done that already. I've exported the body and the feet. And let me go into Marvelous Designer. And no, I'm not going to sit here and make a whole tutorial on how to make a dress, because I don't think you really want to hear that right now. Instead, what I do want to show you is 2 tips. I think it's about 2 tips about making dress for children, or clothing for children. I said dress because I wanted to show you something here as well about the dress. When you look at this, do you see how it's kind of like a bell shape? And that happens quite often even when your pieces are the same size. As you can see, this one's a little shorter from top to bottom, and this is the back. It's a little bit longer. So I wanted to show you some of the things, and if you find that you've made 2 pieces that just don't fit right, there's no reason you can't come in here and click on the edge and just adjust it a little bit. Bring it down so that it is the same size as the other. When it does that, go ahead and simulate it so that it reconnects itself or re-sews it. Now the problem with this is now the front looks really long. Even though they're the same size, the front looks longer because the back is belled out because of the shape and because of the back side of the child. So this is a little puffier back here, which means this kind of has to work, the fabric has to work its way around the butt. And then when it comes down, it doesn't go down as far. So instead of trying to adjust the length of this piece, because as you saw, if this one's shorter even a little bit, the back looks a lot longer. When you make it the same size, the back looks, shorter now. So what you can do is I like to go to the Edit Curvature tool, and on just the bottom here, when I get the blue line, I can pull down a little bit for a little bit of a curve. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you see that it's just enough, that tiny bit, to make the dress look so much nicer on the bottom. And again, go ahead and redo that. When it comes to a child's dress, remember that they're smaller bodies and the fabric acts differently on them than it does on us, and that's because of how much geometry is needed to make clothing for children. You think it needs a lot less, but that's not always the case. So to show you what I mean like that, a really good example is if you look at the neck, and you can tell I've been working in Blender because I'm scrolling my mouse wheel the wrong way. So you can see how choppy the neckline is, although from here this looks like a pretty nice smooth curve. So let me go ahead and come in. Now this doesn't happen only on children's clothing. I went in too far and I can't tell where I'm at. This definitely happens on adult clothing items as well. But when I scroll in here, do you see the blue curved line? That's what we're going for. What we're actually getting is when it gets to a curviest part, is that the mesh is not fitting into that line, so it has to come up. Now, if this face of the geometry were actually in half, it would come down to a point and then go back up. But that's not what we have. So when it comes to an adult, we can click on the Edit Pattern button, click on the pattern piece, and look for what's called particle distance. Right now it's set at 20 millimeters. That means from point to point of the geometry. It's no, it's all at, they try to measure it all at 20 millimeters. Sometimes it is less, but not very often. Generally speaking, it's 20 millimeters. And that is just too big of a piece. It's almost like we have to subdivide the fabric. So on an adult, when we do 10 particle distance, it really does make a difference. So let me go ahead and resimulate here. And you can see it's still pretty choppy if I move in. It's just that those lines are shorter, but they're all still there. Let me scroll in here for you to see as well. See that? They're all still there. They're just, not as big of a piece as before. Okay, so if we go back onto the shirt piece, I find that for children's clothing, I like to do 5 particle distance. Now, when it comes to Marvelous Designer working with fabric pieces that are 5 millimeter particle distance, it takes longer to do things. So please don't get impatient. Work slowly, work small increments at a time, and it'll save your program from crashing on you. It'll save you a lot of heartache about overdoing something. So in the front of this dress, you can see that the curves here are pretty nice. You have a ruffle coming out, a ruffle tucked in, a ruffle coming out, a ruffle tucked in. When we cam around, because of the backside's puffier, you can see that we've got ruffles up here, but down here, there really isn't any. It's all kind of flat and bubbled out. So what you can do for something like this is increase the size of your back ruffle, and that would be by making it wider, usually. It's really hard to see your mouse in Marvelous Designer. I really wish that they would fix that, give us something a little bit better. But if you make it a little bit longer, and watch how I did that too big of an increment, and you'll see that Marvelous Designer has to catch up with it. But when I resimulate the back of the dress, this is going to be much nicer. So let me go ahead and do that. Wait for Marvelous Designer to catch up. Like I said, 5 particle distance. If I were smart, I would have put this back to 20. I would have adjusted the size of the dress piece, and then after it was simulated, I would have gone back down to a 5. I just did this for saving time-wise, and you can see how slowly it moves. It's not that big of a deal. Try to find a time to create when you have time to be patient and experiment. So I could just start pulling this over, and as you see, because I have a little more fabric to work with, and because I have a better particle distance, that I'm able to start manipulating this and creating the kind of ruffles that I want to see on a little girl's dress. Alright, another thing that I thought is, maybe you thought about it, maybe you didn't, but you can see here on the skirt, I made a waistband type item to go between the shirt and the actual skirt. First of all, you have to have this piece in order to make the ruffle. So it is needed, but you can texture it now to be like a belt piece. But with this here, you can actually take the top off when it comes to being in Blender. You don't have to have the top. And if you want to, you can create 2 different pieces so that you can sell them separately as well, and they fit. Another good thing that's with this is that now if I wanted to, I could take the shirt off of here, delete it, and I can make a whole different kind of shirt, and I can make it fit this skirt perfectly. And it's nice because this will all stay the same while I'm able to actually sew a new shirt to it. So it'll always fit perfectly together. What you can do is go to the right mouse button and you get your menu. You can choose freeze. And then the freeze actually turns, nope, I got the wrong piece. Okay, so the freeze actually turns blue. And that means that when you simulate things, when you change things around, that this blue piece is always going to stay the same. So now you're free to make other kinds of shirts to go with this, and you don't have to recreate the skirt at all. And you can sell it two separate tops for the same bottom. Anyhow, so now when we go back into Blender, I'm going to show you a tip. When it comes to, let me bring in the dress first. It's going to be easier if you see it while I'm doing it. So OBJ and the little dress. Wait for it to come in. Alright, so anybody who weight paints knows this. When you weight paint, you have to turn the dress into, or put it into weight paint mode. And this allows you to paint. And it's taking a little bit of time here. Oh, you know what? It's not going to turn blue because I have not skinned it yet. I have not added it to the rig yet. No big deal. We'll do that in a minute. But when you have the body and you say you've been weight painting and you want to adjust a leg, move it so you can see how your weight painting is working, you have to put the dress back in object mode. You have to select the rig. You have to put the rig in pose mode. You move the leg. You check the weight painting. When you're happy with it, you have to put the rig back into object mode, select the dress, put it back into weight paint mode. Back and forth 100 times for one outfit. It's so difficult and annoying to do. So this is what I do. Take the rig and you go ahead and you put it in pose mode. You come over here into the Object Data tab. You look for in front and go ahead and check mark that. This lower window, if you have one, great. If you don't, you can make one. After you have a window down here, click the editor type menu button and choose timeline. Where's my timeline? There it is. Timeline. By default, this will start out on frame 1, and on frame 1, you are now in the regular T-pose. Let me go to the side view. So in frame, let me scroll in, because if you scroll in, you can get frame number 2. So frame number 2, I'm going to rotate the leg forward. I'm going to come down here to this keying button or menu. For active keying set, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to choose rotation. Then I'm going to come over here to where there's a key icon and a plus button, and I'm going to click that. And you'll see now I have a keyframe keyed here in the actual timeline. Let me go ahead to number 3, and I'm going to rotate that backwards. I'm going to go to my keying button again and hit the plus button. Now let's go ahead and just put that back where it came from. Well, not yet, because if I tried to do that, it would just move anyways. Alright, so now let's go around to the other side. Control 3. Now I'm going to take this leg and I'm going to rotate it forward. Keying and just hit the plus button. Frame 5. Actually, for frame 5, this I should have brought them back down. Okay, let me just go back for a second. What did I do? Okay, so frame 2, it's doing both legs. I don't know why it's doing both legs. Okay, so let's just do this leg here. So let's move this to 5. And let's do our keying set. There we go. And 6, let's just choose all. Alt R. Wrong. I keep going up here, and you might find the same thing. I keep going up here for this menu. And that is because sometimes when you're doing your timeline here, these buttons here will actually be at the top of the screen rather than at the bottom. So every once in a while I find myself going to the wrong one. Alright, so number 2, they're both going forward. I don't know why that's happening, to tell you the truth. This one here should be down at this point. So let me try keying that in. Frame number 2, that leg should be back, but this one should be straight down. So let's see if the keying on this works. Alright, then frame number 4, that's actually fine. But I'm going to take this one down anyways. Okay, so the point of this is that now you can go ahead and turn off the in front. And you can come into your dress. Let's go ahead and select this again. Select all of them. Go into the T-pose. Alt-R. Alright. Let's put that back in object mode. So let's go ahead and rig this real quick. Or skin it. Skin is actually the proper term, not rigging. So select the dress and choose Lock Garments. Choose the body and choose Lock Weight Sources. And then from there, let's just go ahead and transfer our weights. Give it a minute. There we go. We're all done with that. All right. So now, why is it not selecting? There it is. So now it's selected. And you can see here that the Object Data tab has changed, and it's now showing us our vertex groups. You can click on these for which bone you want, rather than clicking on the bone here for the body. So if I go into weight paint mode, and let's say I choose the right upper leg, those are the weights for the upper right leg. Now I can come in here and I can start weight painting, weight painting, weight painting. And I can say, okay, I wonder how that looks. So in this case, I would just go to this frame number 4. And that shows me how it moves with that leg. If I go to frame 5, the leg goes back, and I can see again how the mesh is working with this leg. Now I can come in here and I can fix it, or I can go back into the regular T-pose, which is not really working for me. I wonder why. There it is. So now I can come in here and I can, do more weight painting. I have draw on instead of blur. Usually I like to just blur. For me, that works the best. I love blur. So anyhow, I can come in here and I can do my blurring. And then, again, if I want to test to see how that new weight painting worked with the dress, all I have to do is come in here and change the timeline. I don't have to put this in object mode, choose the rig, put the rig into front view, put it into pose, change it, back and forth, back and forth. Anyhow, catch my breath. That was just a bunch of little tips all kind of rolled in together. And I added in the fact that we can use the BB Dev Kit with Bento Buddy and everything works fine. I could export this for you, but you really wouldn't see anything different than you do with anything else because it works the same. And I also don't have a BB body to put on to test clothing inside of Second Life for you to watch. I will just go ahead and show you just now how to export this real quick. So I go back in Object, come over here, let me close that up, to the Mesh Export. And what we want to do is expand, rig, and kit options. There are no presets to load for the BebeBody because actually we just don't have them for Bento Buddy yet, which we might end up talking somebody who's really nice into making us some. But what I've noticed, and like I said, I can't really test it fully on a body yet, but what I have noticed is that the settings for this are pretty much our default ones. So what you're going to get on default in this window is good to go with. If you take this into Second Life and you find out that it's hovering behind you 5 meters, or it's dangling off your hand, or something isn't right about it, what you want to do is come back in here and you want to check the use rig data or the use bind data. So by default you would be using the rig. You can come in here and change the bind. Another thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that the rotation is on. If rotation is on and it's not working quite right, go ahead and turn the rotation off or turn the location on. You know, you can kind of mess around with those two a little bit. And then you would just come down to advanced export options. This one here is apply modifiers. So if you have modifiers in your program that you were working on, but you don't really want to apply them because you don't want to lose the ability to change them, then you don't have to apply them. You could just put here, apply modifiers. So you can also go down here and check out what these, other items are for as well. And when you're done with all that, you see 4SL OpenSim. You would just click on that. Export mesh for Second Life and OpenSim. And then here you would just go ahead and name it and save it to whatever folder you want to. Anyways, so that's a quick little few sets of tips. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe, share, and like the video for me. It means the world to me. And I will see you on the next one. If you have any quick little videos that you want done, just go ahead and get a hold of me, and I'll see if I can't just throw something quick together for you. Thanks.